Hello and welcome to the Daemonation Report, a news/opinion series where we look back at a major Daemon event from the past 7 days and offer our perspective on it. Today we're talking about the Nintendo Direct conference which took place on Wednesday the 23rd of January. 3 major announcements were made during the broadcast, the first being that Wind Waker was receiving a full HD remake, the second being that new Wii U games were coming to the console in 2013, and the Wii U Virtual Console finally got some details and, more importantly, a release date. So perhaps the most important announcement, and certainly the most surprising, was that Wind Waker is receiving a HD re-release on the Wii U. Now this isn't just a common HD re-release, this isn't just an upscaled version of the original game, which is obviously quite common in the industry these days. This is a full remake, Nintendo are taking the time to completely redo the entire game. Presumably the game will run in a new engine, obviously it's going to be in 1080p, it's completely redone. And already a lot of people are seeing this as a bad thing. Now, for the record, I think this is a brilliant thing. I am personally very excited for this. Wind Waker was one of my favourite GameCube games, but a lot of people are already complaining, mainly because of the art style. Now, if you look at the screenshot on the screen at the moment, it looks good, doesn't it? It looks, looks nice, it's HD. You look at it compared to the original Wind Waker screens, and you cannot deny that the cell shading, which Wind Waker was infamous for, has gone. It's not there. The art style is very similar, but all of the textures are not cell shaded. So sort of understandably people are upset about this fact. They're saying, well, this isn't Wind Waker, this isn't the game that we used to love, you've changed this too much. This is what people are saying, I don't agree with this, but people are saying, if you're going to re-release this game without cell shading, why you even bother? Just don't bother re-releasing it if you're not going to make it the same. And a lot of people have also been throwing around dolphin emulation footage of Wind Waker, which looks fantastic in 1080p. The textures look brilliant because they're all black colours, so the cell shaded style serves well. Upscaling it makes it look fantastic. Yeah, the UI looks a bit dull, but that's because it was designed for much smaller screens. So a lot of people are saying, why aren't you just re-releasing an upscaled version? Which also makes sense. If you're not going to make the game cell shaded, just release an upscaled version of the original. Now in my opinion, what we saw on the Nintendo Direct broadcast was alpha footage, not even alpha footage, it was a test footage of what they'd done so far. Now, I have a lot of friends who do game design courses, and when they're making scenes in 3D packages like Maya, to show these things off, they just shove a couple of character models in there, just to make it look nice. And when I was watching the footage, I got that impression that what we were looking at wasn't in-game, it was just a very basic thing that someone had thrown together last minute, and that was kind of the impression I was getting from the whole conference. Nintendo were worried. Nintendo were very desperately trying to get in there before any other company and say, look, we know that the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox 720 or whatever they're going to be called is going to be better than our console graphically. We understand that. What we want to offer to you is new and exciting experiences that you can only get with Nintendo products, and that includes Zelda. Now, Zelda will not be coming to the Wii U until around 2015. That's just common knowledge. They cannot get another Zelda out quickly. But in terms of Zelda, as everyone does to Nintendo for Zelda, they had nothing to show. So what they've done is, and my game design friends have said, they've agreed with this, they watched the broadcast with me, and when they saw those images, they said exactly what I'm about to say now. They got very basic modelling footage, probably made it look pretty, dropped Link and Zelda in there, and said, this is, Wind Waker, this is what we're showing you today. This isn't finished, this is so far off finishing. The fact that they've even said, an autumn release date is actually probably the most worrying thing, because this does not seem finished. Still, that's just my opinion, I have no evidence to back this up. But to me, and people who do this thing for a living, people are kind of agreeing, this isn't even alpha footage. If they had video footage of this in action, they would have showed us video footage of it in action. They wouldn't have resorted to just sit screenshots to try and convince us all that they were working on this brilliant new project. This is early days, and this was more an opportunity to get a hype gathering before other things come in the way and inevitably steal the thunder from the mainstream. That's, in my opinion, that's what this was. Thing is though, if you were a company and you'd release this game and everyone started complaining that it wasn't cell shaded, what do you think the first thing Nintendo were going to do? And to me, everyone's saying this isn't cell shaded, this isn't what we want. I have a very strong feeling that they're going to then make it cell shaded, and the next time we see it, which inevitably will be E3, I've got a very good feeling it's going to be cell shaded. I mean, the original Borderlands apparently looked like Fallout 3 all the way up until, I don't know, 6 months before release. and then it was completely cel-shaded. There was enough time for them to completely change the art style, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point if they did. We need to take away from this that Nintendo are genuinely disappointed that they cannot get us out high quality HD experiences from franchises that they're famous for quickly enough to satisfy everyone who's bought the console. So in return, they're giving us a complete remake of one of Damien's most loved installments in one of Damien's most loved series, and I cannot see much of a problem with that. Just as a final point to this Wind Waker debate, a lot of people were also complaining that it wasn't Majora's Mask. A lot of people were saying, look, we wanted Majora's Mask in HD. Now, I was looking through some old Damination articles on the website, and I found one that said that Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Zelda, said that Majora's Mask or Link to the Past 3DS remakes were a possibility. Now, this was in June last year. And basically, when asked what was in store for the 3DS, he said, we haven't quite decided yet whether we're going to do a Link to the Past, because there's also the possibility of doing a remake of Majora's Mask. So when people are saying why haven't they done Majora's Mask in HD on the Wii U, it's probably because it's coming out on the 3DS this year. Now, we had Ocarina of Time redone on the 3DS. It would make more sense to release the sequel to Ocarina of Time on the same platform in the same engine, remastered the same way as the original was. So if you're wondering where Majora's Mask is, it's probably coming to the 3DS later on this year. Okay, the next major announcement was that there is a ton of new Wii U games coming out in the next year and a half. The most important of those was that there's a new Zelda. But what was interesting is that the producer of Zelda said that they were looking at new ways of people playing Zelda, and the two ways that they were looking at changing was the fact that you've always got to complete dungeons in a certain order, and that you often play, by yourself. Now, this pretty much confirms that they're looking at new ways of putting in online functionality or some kind of multiplayer function into the game. So, it might be easy to instantly sit down and think, alright, they're going to make the game co-op. Not necessarily. It seems more likely that the Wii U gamepad will be used in a different way, so maybe one person will play using the Wiimote, and the other person might maybe control something else with a gamepad. Obviously, the thing about the gamepad is that it's best when it's controlling the world for another player to experience. So, you could be making dungeons for your friend to then do, or you could be changing the way that the dungeons work for your friend to get through easily. The other interesting way is it could be making it a bit more like Dark Souls. There's no reason why they couldn't do maybe some kind of time or dimension plot, and maybe have it so that multiple people play the game at exactly the same time. They influence other people's worlds without even realising it. You can leave messages for them. And that seems like the very Nintendo-friendly way of approaching this. So, although that, to me, set off alarm bells when I saw those two facts up on the screen, but to be honest with you, I think it's probably about time that Nintendo did sit down with one of their major franchises and change it in a way that could be considered too much, because at the end of the day, a bit of innovation is never a bad thing. Other announcements included a new Mario and a new Mario Kart. This is to be expected. We all knew these were coming. I am glad to see they are coming this early though, as I was worried that we weren't going to see a new 3D Mario game in action until at least E3 2014, so it is nice to see a new Mario game at least this year's E3. To be honest, again, this is Nintendo just trying to play all their cards at once before the other companies come along and trump them. Now we know exactly what Nintendo have planned for E3, so while Sony and Xbox are going to surprise us, we can be comfortable in the fact that Nintendo are going to have a big E3 regardless. We know that for a fact now. This year's E3 is going to be the big one, and this is for all companies, and to be honest with you, it's going to be exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And finally, it was revealed that the Wii U is receiving a virtual console this spring. Unfortunately, it will be a very, very scaled back version compared to the Wii, as they're redoing every single title to be compatible with the Wii U gamepad and with Miiverse. Basically, come spring, you'll only be able to buy a selection of games from the NES, the Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy Advance, and that is a significant drop of support compared to the Wii when you look at the fact that we had N64 and Game Gear and all these other kind of consoles, as soon as it was released on the Wii. And yes, it was disappointing that we didn't see the Nintendo GameCube be announced, even though it's inevitable that it will be eventually. To be honest with you, the whole reveal was completely disappointing. Hopefully the conversion process doesn't take too long and we should have N64 games on before summer, but at this point I have no leg to stand on. I have no idea. For all we know, we could be stuck with those three consoles until Christmas. At the time, we just have to play the waiting game, which is disappointing because a lot of people, myself included, were excited to finally play things like GameCube games and N64 games on the gamepad. So in summary, Nintendo, you did well. Wind Waker HD is a fantastic idea, even though people may not think that at the moment. The new Zelda and new Mario games should hopefully have exciting reveals, and should hopefully see them within the next 2 years. And the Virtual Console may have had a disappointing start, but hopefully they'll pull it out the bath within the next 2 to 3 months. Thank you for listening to the Daemonation Report. Give it a like if you like this kind of thing, otherwise I'll just stop doing them and cry in a hole. For more news, reviews and previews, head on over to daemonation.co.uk, and feel free to subscribe for more stuff like this. I've been Liam Richardson, and thank you very much for watching.